synagogue, the only full-size replica of a synagogue in the Holy Land. You will see a lot of synagogues, and you've probably seen a lot of synagogues, but some will be missing a roof, others missing a wall, missing a projector. You know how synagogues are. But this is the only fully built one. Now, when you walked in, you might have felt the coolness of being inside. This is how the structure is built. We've done extensive research to make sure all these buildings were built not only using first-century building materials, but also first-century engineering methods as well. So you might have noticed the windows very high up. We all know what happens to hot air, right? Rises. Then they are narrow and parallel to one another. That creates a ventilation system. So hot air is constantly rising. It circulates or scatters, finds its way out, and leaves the room with its full sensation. Now, the stones are very large. There are not enough hours in the day to heat them fully back up, so they maintain the coolness from the night before. Feel them? Cold, right? That neutralizes the heat as well, so it helps cater to the crowd, to the large crowd. Now, let's look at the ceiling. This is how they used to make the ceilings back then, or one of the methods, one of the ways. Of course, there's never one way for anything except Christ, you know. But they start by laying the beams of trees across. Then you have a layer of reed. Then you have a layer of mud on top of that. You can see the mud between the broken reeds, right? That mud is made from water, limestone, ash, dirt, and straw. Then you have a layer of dry dirt, which is there to absorb rainwater, and it's finished off with another layer of mud that's rolled down with a stone roller to give it that tough exterior. Kind of like what we've been walking on all day long. So, from this information, you know that it's possible to dig through a roof. Right? Yeah. So you dig through the first 3 layers of mud, you break the reed, and you lower a person down between the beams of trees. Back then, the beams of trees were a lot farther apart. Today, they had to do it real close like this for city code. But the synagogue is the heart of the village. It's a community center. It's a civic center. It's where people come together. That's what it means, synagogue, right? The gathering of people. So it's a multi-purpose building. On the Sabbath, yes, they come for prayer and worship, but the rest of the days of the week, they use it for whatever the village needs it to be at the time. Keep in mind, this is a small community of 300, 400, 500 people. You don't need a different building for every activity the village engages in, right? So it's there to resolve a dispute between 2 people. It becomes a courthouse. If you want to learn a new language, a school, or for a place to socialize. People to come together and talk about the world, discuss politics, argue about religion, the Kardashians, whatever's happening at the time is my point. But we are here for one story only. We mentioned in the first room 2 things happened in Nazareth. The Annunciation and this event. And this is what happened. So Jesus was baptized in the Jordan River. Then he went to fast for 40 days in the wilderness. Then he came back to the Galilee area and entered. He was tried by Satan in the wilderness too. Then he came back to the Galilee area and entered a synagogue in Nazareth, actually very similar to this one. Thank you. Now you can imagine the synagogue being very full, because people started hearing more and more about Jesus, about his performance of miracles, about his teaching, and so forth. Not like today. So he came in, they saw Jesus in the crowd, identified him, asked him to come up and read from one of the scrolls. So Jesus came up, they handed him the scroll of Isaiah. Jesus picks up the scroll, opens it, navigates in it, and finds where it says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. For he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bring freedom to the prisoners, the recovery of sight to the blind, to set the oppressed free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Abruptly stops right there, rolls the scroll, gives it to the attendant. The attendant will place it in an urn, similar to this one. The urn is transferred later on to the storage room to protect the scroll from disintegration, sat back down, and continued talking to the people. Where he added, "Today, this prophecy is fulfilled in your hearing."
Yes.
Just like that, everyone's eyes were fixed on Jesus. They were astonished. They couldn't believe what was going on. There was a little hubbub, commotion, people talking among each other. What? What did this guy say? Did he really claim to be the Messiah? The person we've been waiting on for all these years? They got happy. They got excited because God has been quiet for 400 years. Of course they got happy. They wanted that spark of hope. They got happy at first. But then, like all of us human beings, they started hearing these voices in their heads. These doubtful voices that we hear every day. Voices telling us things like, we're not good enough. Or whatever we're seeing is not really happening. So they started talking again. This time doubting. What? Wait, no. Wait. Isn't this Joseph's kid? Yeah. We know this guy. He used to help us with the grapes. He can't be the Messiah. What are you talking about, crazy people? Because that's how people think, psychologically speaking. When they know you, they know who your parents are, who you were as a child, what you did as a kid. You're always going to be that kid to them, right? And he actually told them that. He said, I know you're going to quote me and say a prophet is not creditworthy in his own hometown. He said, okay. Fair enough. Prove it. You're the Messiah? Show us. I mean, you've been doing signs and miracles all over the place. Why not do it here in your own hometown? What, you're too good for us? So what came next from Jesus is basically saying, no, but because you lack faith. And this is a perfect time to teach you about faith. So, I'm going to bring you two stories from the books we've been reading and studying in this building for all these years about where two people were saved based on faith alone. One was about Naaman the Syrian. You remember this guy, right? Naaman's big general guy from the opposing army back then. He had leprosy. The prophet Elisha told him, go dip yourself 7 times in the Jordan River and you will be healed. He did it and he was healed.
Praise God.
Based on faith alone. Then comes the widow. She had a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of flour. There was a famine coming. She was worried that she's not going to survive the famine because that was her last meal. But the prophet Elijah told her, feed me, and you'll survive the famine. She did so and survived. Now realize, faith came first. Then the miracle happened. Not the other way around.
Yes.
She didn't need a miracle to have faith. She needed faith to get a miracle.
Yes.
Convinced you, right? Satisfied you, right? Did it satisfy them? No. They were furious with Jesus. How dare you mention stories like that? You could have told us about Daniel, about David, about anyone, really. Instead, you bring those 2 stories, you got some miracle. Why were they so mad at Jesus? Gentiles. They were mad because these 2 examples were of Gentiles. So, here's Jesus in a room full of Jews, trying to show them, teach them what faith looks like. You know, faith 101. Using 2 perfect examples of non-Jews. Wow, he's really swimming with sharks at this point, right? Walking on thin ice. But do you know why? And this is key here. Because these people in that room, including Jesus, were under Roman occupation all these years. Remember we just mentioned it outside? Roman times were horrible times, dark times. They're bitter. They're occupied. Of course they're mad. What are you saying, Jesus? You're saying these Gentiles have more faith than we do, and we're the chosen people? You're saying what? Now I'm supposed to open my welcoming, loving arms to these foreigners out there? These people that are killing us, terrorizing us, what? Raping our daughters? I'm supposed to just welcome them into my heaven like nothing happened? That salvation is not just for the Jews anymore, but for the Americans as well. That can't be right. Yeah, they got mad. I probably would have been mad too if I was there. So they grabbed him. They wanted to throw him off a cliff like one of... I want to say this one again. So we grabbed him. We wanted to throw him off a cliff like one of the execution methods we saw in the 3rd room. But Jesus slips away, leaves Nazareth, never to come back here again. That was the last mention of him being in Nazareth, by the way. Kicked out of his own hometown. Imagine that happening to you. What do you do next? You fall into a deep depression, right? Tell God, I don't want to do this anymore. Recluse yourselves. Did he? No, that's the silver lining. He left Nazareth with his power, his strength, his light, his vision, his message, and his love. Shining it everywhere else he went. He didn't mope around. I mean, maybe for a few weeks. I don't know what happened. But he left with his light. And you're not really staying in Nazareth either. You're leaving Nazareth at some point today or tomorrow, right? We like to give you the light of Jesus in this form of a first century replica of a lamp, which is actually our logo as well. So you can take it with you, each and every one of you, when we get out right now. So you can take it with you outside Nazareth, shine his light everywhere you go outside. As if you were